Climate change is a highly debated and controversial topic in today's world. On one side of the dispute, there are those who firmly believe that climate change is primarily caused by human activity, particularly the burning of fossil fuels. They argue that the release of greenhouse gases into the atmosphere, such as carbon dioxide, is leading to a global rise in temperatures, resulting in detrimental effects on ecosystems, weather patterns, and human health. Proponents of this argument often point to scientific studies and data that highlight the correlation between human activities and increased greenhouse gas emissions. They emphasize the need for immediate and drastic measures to reduce carbon emissions in order to mitigate the impacts of climate change. Furthermore, they assert that if urgent action is not taken, the consequences could be disastrous. On the other side of the debate, there are skeptics who question the extent of human influence on climate change. They argue that natural factors such as solar radiation and volcanic activities play a significant role in shaping the Earth's climate. According to them, the Earth has undergone periods of warming and cooling throughout its history, often without any involvement from human beings. Skeptics suggest that the current changes in climate may simply be part of a natural cycle and not exclusively caused by human actions. They also question the accuracy of climate models and the data used to support the human-centric argument. Skeptics argue that implementing policies to combat climate change may have detrimental effects on the economy, leading to job losses and reduced living standards. One of the key points raised by those who attribute climate change to human activity is the increase in greenhouse gas emissions. Supporters of this view argue that the burning of fossil fuels such as coal, oil, and natural gas releases substantial amounts of carbon dioxide and other gases in the atmosphere. These gases trap heat and contribute to the greenhouse effect, resulting in a rise in global temperatures. They cite studies that show a clear correlation between the increase in carbon dioxide emissions and the increase in global temperatures over the past century. Additionally, they highlight the rapid industrialization and urbanization, particularly in developing countries, as significant contributors to the rise in greenhouse gas emissions. Contrary to the human-centric argument, skeptics point to natural factors as the primary drivers of climate change. They argue that fluctuations in solar radiation can have a substantial impact on the Earth's temperature. They believe that changes in the output of the sun, such as the intensity of solar radiation or variations in sunspot activity, can significantly influence the climate. Skeptics also bring attention to natural phenomena like volcanic eruptions, which release large amounts of gases and particles into the atmosphere, affecting Earth's temperature. They emphasize the need for further research to better understand these natural factors and their impact on climate change over time. Proponents of the human-caused climate change argument often cite the increasing frequency and intensity of extreme weather events as evidence of global warming. They argue that rising temperatures lead to more frequent occurrences of heat waves, droughts, hurricanes, and heavy rainfall. Additionally, they assert that climate change is resulting in the melting of polar ice caps, leading to rising sea levels and the loss of coastal habitats. These proponents believe that immediate action is necessary to reduce greenhouse gas emissions and mitigate the potential future impacts of climate change. They advocate for the transition to renewable energy sources, such as solar and wind power, as well as the adoption of sustainable practices in agriculture, transportation, and industry. Skeptics, however, argue that extreme weather events have occurred throughout history and cannot solely be attributed to human-induced climate change. They suggest that natural climate variability and other factors, such as oceanic cycles like El Niño and La Niña, contribute significantly to the occurrence and intensity of extreme weather phenomena. Skeptics acknowledge that climate change is happening, but question to what extent human activities are responsible for the observed changes. They caution against rushing into policy decisions that may have unintended consequences and urge for a balanced approach that considers both the potential risks and benefits of various actions taken to address climate change. One of the primary concerns for proponents of immediate action against climate change is the potential impact on ecosystems and biodiversity. They argue that rising temperatures and changing weather patterns threaten fragile ecosystems, leading to species extinction, disruption of food chains, and lost biodiversity. Proponents point to scientific studies that highlight the vulnerability of ecosystems, such as coral reefs, forests, and polar regions, to the impacts of climate change. They emphasize the need to preserve and protect these valuable ecosystems as they play a crucial role in maintaining the balance of the Earth's climate. Skeptics, however, argue that ecosystems have historically adapted to natural climate changes, and some species have even thrived during warmer periods. They suggest that while certain ecosystems might face challenges due to climate change, others might benefit from it. They caution against making assumptions about the fragility of ecosystems and argue that natural adaptation and resilience mechanisms should not be underestimated. Skeptics believe that rather than investing heavily in climate change mitigation, resources should be directed towards adapting to potential changes and develop innovative technologies that can help mitigate the negative impacts on vulnerable ecosystems. The debate on climate change remains polarized, with passionate arguments on both sides. While proponents of the human-caused climate change argument prioritize immediate and drastic action to mitigate the potential impacts, skeptics advocate for caution and a more comprehensive understanding of the complex forces driving climate change. The future of our planet's climate hangs in the balance, and it is essential to continue rigorous scientific research, engage in open dialogue, and explore innovative solutions to address this global challenge. Ultimately, finding common ground and working collectively to protect our environment for future generations is key in navigating the complexities of climate change.